All right, we're live. Welcome. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Lauren. Good to see you.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm so excited to talk to you. We had a
Me.
little pre show
Yeah.
prep session, and I'm really excited about what we're talking about tonight and who we're talking to, which is, anybody on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, but
Yeah.
also this very specific group of people who work really hard.
Mm.
Um, and and you and I both have a lot of experience with working very hard, with being successful at it, with not being so successful at it, with really struggling with it, and
Yep.
then emerging out the other side. And so I think our stories that we tell today are going to be really relatable, and um, I'm willing to get a little vulnerable
Me
with
too.
some of the harder stuff, and I know you
Yeah.
are too. And so as we're kicking off and as people are joining us, Sharon, why don't you just start by introducing yourself? Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
Yep. I'm Sharon Sperry. I am uh, mostly a leadership coach. I lead workshops and I have a community. My business is The Better Nature of Work. And so that sort of rallied a community around it of people who are evolving the nature of work and want to see work be better and are doing work to make it better. So I facilitate and host conversations and also do workshops and training. Um, and what I'm about is rewilding the nature of work because I believe that when it's more natural and we're working in alignment with our own beings, that it's not only more fun and more interesting, it's also better. It works better. We have better outcomes, better relationships. And I've spent a long time learning what not to do to have work be wilder in good ways. And so, yeah, hopefully we're now turning the tide a little bit more.
Yeah, amazing. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive leadership coach. And I work with managers, directors, VPs, C suite to escape the trap of being fine.
Mm.
Fine is a trap that we get into where we're justifying all the time. Oh, this is fine. Oh, I have too much, but it's fine. And every time we say it's fine, it feels worse. And so I help people break the work, sleep, repeat cycle that we get into when we are hard workers and high achievers who become workaholics and are people pleasers. And I work one on one with clients. I do workshops, I speak, I write, and I'm here to offer people choice and hope that they embrace it. And we've got a comment from Elizabeth Droke, who is excited to be here. We're excited to have you. And just as we're getting started, we are streaming tonight through StreamYard, and we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if you comment, your comment should come through to us. If you haven't given StreamYard permission to use your name, you might just come through as LinkedIn user, Facebook user, but we'll acknowledge you and we'll bring you into the comments and into the conversation. So along the way, please feel free to ask questions and be in conversation with us. So tonight we're talking about sort of the path from like rising hard worker to getting so overwhelmed that we get sort of broken, right? And then emerging from that. And so Sharon, I'd love to hear sort of your path from that initial hard worker phase
Mm.
and when it took a turn for you.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll try to keep this kind of high level, and then you can pick up the breadcrumbs. I think I really started getting clear on what I wanted to do when I was in my 20s. I put myself through college. I was the first person in my family to go to college, so I put myself through as an adult who was working almost full time at the time that I was going through school. Um, and I was fascinated by industrial organizational psychology. It was like the perfect degree for me. I sort of um, couldn't have designed it better because it was this combination of systems and business and humans and the way we work together. Um, and then I went into sales for a little bit, which is not for me, but I learned a lot, sales and marketing. And then I went into great background for anyone who wants to have their business in the future. So I know enough to be dangerous, but not, definitely wasn't my thing. Then I went into recruiting, and from there at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and from there went into recruiting programs and operations. I was running a global um, operations function at PeopleSoft, which was an amazing culture. I really got a great cultural education there about how culture works and how it takes hold and what keeps it and what harms it and all of that. And then I moved on from there I moved to North Lake Tahoe with my soon to be husband at the time. And and then I just kind of took a leap of faith. Oracle was about to acquire us. I thought, maybe this is an opportunity to take a beat and see what's next. And what was next fell right into my lap. Microsoft had a division or a wholly owned subsidiary that was based out of Reno, not far from my home, and they needed a recruiting manager. So, or actually, I think, yeah, kind of a recruiting manager at the time. 7.5 years later, my career with Microsoft came to a close. During that time, I was promoted 5 times and just kept sort of reinventing my job and got to do some amazing things, programs that affected culture and career growth and employee engagement. I got certified in something called Emergenetics, which is a tool that gives us insight into our thinking and behavioral preferences and creates appreciation for cognitive diversity on teams. And I got to go all over the world and train that, which was amazing. And the last 2 years there were kind of hard. Things started more and more stuff stuck to me and started to snowball, and I started to sort of fall apart, and it did not end as well as I would have liked. And I think what I do now is a lot because of what had me succeed before that, but also because of the damage that did, right? I mean, it took me quite a while to heal from that and to feel like I could talk about it even, and claim that part of my career. It was such a rich experience. I learned so much and did so much. Then I went on from there to start my own business, my own consulting business, which has evolved since then. And I've gotten coaching certified, and I'm in the coactive leadership program, and finding my own way as a leader. I don't think I ever thought I was a leader. And now I'm learning, oh yeah, there's all these different ways to lead. So yeah, come out on the other side, supporting clients through these situations where they go, maybe we used to call it hypo to alpo. You go from high potential to dog food and like lightning quick because so much stuff gets stuck to you. And so I really understand that. I understand what goes into that and why it happens. And I don't want it to happen. It's not necessary. It doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, when you recap so fast, it it feels like, it was great, and then it was great, and then it was terrible, and now it's over, and now it's great again, right? So we're gonna dig in, right? We're gonna dig in more
Okay.
to
And I really want
especially
to hear
that middle
your
part.
story too. Do you want to give the high
Yeah.
level first and then we
Yeah, I
can
would
dig into
love
both?
to. Sure. So, I also had a very short sales career, where I got tapped on the shoulder to move out of it very quickly, early on.
Yeah,
I
you did.
started
Yeah.
as a meeting planning assistant out of college, and then I moved into an accounting position and then a sales position, all in about 3 years. And then I got tapped on the shoulder to move into HR, which was, that was the blessing because I stayed in HR for more than 20 years. And and we've got a comment about Alpo database. Are you
Are you
eating
eating
your
your dog
dog
food?
food? Yeah,
Yeah,
and if it
kind of.
works, then you're validating that awesome 2-year
Except in
experience.
that case, I was the dog food. That's the
Right.
difference. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started my HR career at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I was in a very small headquarters, and then got promoted out into the field, and got promoted out into the field, and I became the cleanup queen. I could
Mm,
clean up any kind of problem. I could I was called on to mentor new HR people and help get them trained. And I became the go-to person for HR in the DC area for like, how do we do this? How do we get out of this? How do we get into that? What do I do with this situation? And it was super flattering and great. And my boss didn't like me.
Mm.
And and speaking of which, we've got a comment from somebody I worked with at Enterprise, very small.
Wait, what is that? I missed it. What's very small?
I was saying that my office was very small.
Oh, your office is very small. Okay.
And Brian worked
Brian
in the
knows
small
how small
office,
your
and then
office
I
was.
got promoted into larger offices.
Got it.
And my boss didn't like me, and told my colleagues that he would never promote me because he didn't like me. So my choice was, leave or ask for a transfer. And I brought my concerns up the chain and was told that I probably had some stuff I could work on. And so I decided to leave and went to an investment company, Calvert Investments, which was a dream company, a dream job for a lot of years. And I was an HR business partner there. I had opportunity to work with the parent company, which was in the insurance industry, and got asked to be on projects. Like it was the job that really like pumped me up and had me realize that I was really good at HR. And after 9 years there, knowing that there was no place to grow and hearing rumors of layoffs, which eventually did come true, but not being in the conversations, which when you're in HR, if you're not in conversations about layoffs, but you're hearing about them, that you're on the list.
Oh,
and so I left before I got on the list. But one of the things that happened at Calvert was that I got so excited about HR and I got so excited about opportunity, and I was so flattered being asked to participate in stuff that I never said no to anything. And if I saw an opportunity, even if I wasn't being asked to come in, if I saw an opportunity to get in, I'd be like, hey guys, what are you doing? Can I work on it? Can I come in? Right. And so I became like a real workaholic, and was working probably 60 hours a week pretty consistently, maybe a little bit more. And then I moved, because of the rumors of layoffs, I moved to a nonprofit and became vice president of HR, department of one, building an HR department from scratch. Promised myself I wouldn't work too many hours, started working 80 to 100 hours a week consistently. And I fell out of love with HR. After about 15 years, I fell out of love with HR. And I really desperately wanted to keep loving it. And I had this compulsion to be a hand raiser, to be a doer, to contribute. And so I raised my hand to be the interim vice president of this and the interim manager of that whenever there was a hole in the organization. And could not get myself out of this 80 to 100 hour work week. And I internalized it all. I didn't go to anybody. I didn't say I needed help. And we're going to talk more about that. I started looking for other jobs because I thought like, oh, this place requires me to work this many hours. If I go somewhere else, right? Like it never occurred to me, like wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
Right. You just come with you.
Yep. I say that all the time.
Yeah. And I loved the CEO that I was working for 5 of the years that I was there. And I respected him, and I loved the organization, and I loved my colleagues. And I kept trying to fall in love with the different interim jobs that I was getting. And I didn't. And then one day I broke both of my shoulders in a Roomba accident, which is the little robot vacuum I was chasing it in my apartment.
Before. I just never
I know. And it is a story for a whole other life, but I was chasing the Roomba to try to stop it from crashing into something, which it didn't do because it's a Roomba and it knows what to do. And I slipped on my wood floor in my socks and I broke both of my shoulders. And of course, the first joke that came was, oh, I guess you can no longer be a hand raiser because my shoulder didn't go up. And so I had this break, right? This 3-4 month break where I didn't work at all.
How many months?
It was about 4 months before I went back to work.
Okay. Wow.
And it was a little over a year for full recovery. And while I was on this break, I was like, oh, sign from the universe. I need to rethink everything, do things differently. And I didn't. I went right back. And
Mm.
as soon as I could work, as soon as my arms could take the keyboard all day, as soon as I could go back into the office, I was back in, I was back at it. I was back working all of these hours.
Yeah.
And now I'd become the person who did all the things. So whenever there was a hole, somebody would say, who's going to handle this? And everybody would turn to me and wait for me to raise my hand because I would.
Right. You had
And
trained them. Yeah.
I had trained them, exactly. And now I resented it.
Okay, that's different. Yep.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And so over the next couple of years, with the start of the pandemic and all the stuff that I had taken on, it made me realize that I couldn't live this life for the rest of my life, that I wasn't happy. I wasn't really pleasing anybody because I wasn't finding any joy in my work anymore. And I didn't want to live this way. And so, you enter the yada, yada, yada. Now I'm a leadership coach and I work for myself, right? Which didn't happen quickly or easily, but in a very sort of worthwhile, very deep path.
Yeah.
And so I love for us to talk about that middle part, right? Where it
the
goes
messy
from
middle in the cocoon, gooey,
right,
kicking,
the goo.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So for people who don't know this metaphor, there's a metaphor in coaching that we all start out as caterpillars and we go into the cocoon and we sit in the goo of the inside of the cocoon. There's a much prettier version of it, of baking cookies and having raw cookie dough, being raw cookie
I've
dough,
never
and
heard
then
that
being the
one
goo
before.
that's cooking. It's like so much prettier.
Nice.
And you come out a butterfly. You come out a fresh baked cookie, and so the goo though keeps existing, right? Like you keep re-evolving, and every time you emerge as a butterfly, there's another cocoon for you to go into to sort of like re-goo yourself. Yeah.
Which, by the way, the first couple times you experience that, you're like, God, I thought I was done with this. I thought I was past that. It gets so frustrating until you realize, oh, yeah, this is kind of how it's going to be. Like, it's just a continual process of, but it gets a little easier each time, a little, more familiar each time, doesn't last as long. So I guess we should talk about it. I'm already like reframing and putting a little positive spin on it. I don't want to do that. We're not going to be toxic positivity.
Yes, for sure. So we've got another comment from Kelvin. How would you describe 2 years of excitable work and then it's dog food? Sounds like a change you recognize as being something that could help you learn dog food for Alpo from, or a customer to learn from dog food not tested, or a company could learn from feedback for both product and server and
kind of
service.
A big question. Maybe I hope we'll get to it. Yeah. And also it was like 15 years of really exciting work. And then really the last like 2 years was when I started noticing, oh, this isn't working. Like something's not working. And where I was looking to the external environment to explain like what wasn't working, because I had always been doing this and it had been working, right? I mean, you and I talked about, Lauren, that there are these, you get really acknowledged and rewarded for, taking on a big project or noticing, finding a need and filling it or creating something new. And I was always doing that constantly. And it got me rewarded until suddenly it was not working anymore. And I think maybe this is part of the learning for customers, this idea, maybe I shouldn't use the dog food metaphor because it's probably not directly applicable to the idea of eating your own dog food. Maybe it is, I don't know. But the idea though, is that we get so attached, like this is precious. This is the thing I built and it works and it's like great. And we're going to nurture it and maintain it and create new things and build from it. And what we fail to notice sometimes is that there's like no support for it, or the environment's really changing, or we're getting feedback about it that's maybe a little quiet, and we're not noticing, that every one complaint it represents 100 that haven't been mentioned. We just can't assume that just because it used to work, that it's going to keep working, or that just because we used to have all the energy we needed and the resources we needed, that we're still going to keep having that in the future. We have to really look for sustainability here. Is that getting too like esoteric?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
really...
not at all. But I would love I would love for us both to get a little bit deep
I know.
on what went wrong.
I can feel it. Like I'm resisting.
I know. So I can go first.
Okay.
So that you can,
I want to go there.
Psych yourself up. I know you do. I know we talked about it before. I don't want to push you anywhere that you don't want to go, but I think what's so important,
we're space holders. We're so trained to hold space for
right.
other people and to be interested in other people's stories and to be okay ourselves,
yeah.
that it is physically uncomfortable for me to go, oh yeah, here's what that felt like. It's just so, unusual in this setting anyway. With my friends, I can do that, and people I'm close to. But thank you for letting me know.
And I think that's
true for most of us.
Yeah, I think that's part of the being in an HR role, a leadership role, and being a high potential, high achieving, hardworking, independent person, is that for me, I put all of this pressure on myself. And you and I talked earlier about this backpack, right, that we fill with stuff, right? So I would take on a new something, go into my backpack of stuff I was responsible for, and everybody else wasn't paying attention to what was on my plate. So they just assumed I had my work under control. So something new would come up. I would volunteer, right?
More than you can handle,
right. And I never felt like it was okay to go to my boss or a colleague whose work I was doing for them, right? Because in a smaller company, I know you were in a big company, so you had HR, right? Where I was, especially in my last position, it was very easy as an HR department of one to bleed into other departments. And already I was managing technology, I was managing operations, I was managing our meetings department, and then whatever hole there was, finance, development, marketing, whatever there was, I figured out how to do it, and I interimed in it. And there was this scope creep where some of the stuff never went back to the original department, and I just became like the vice president of everything. And in that sort of this sort of bell curve, which actually it's like a bell curve on the way up, and then it's like a plummet down.
Yes,
in my case, right? Was like, I'm hardworking. They trust me with stuff. I have opportunity. I'm learning. I'm doing more. They're giving me more. They're trusting me with more. I hate it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I hit this point where I was no longer proud of the work I was doing. I was no longer pleased with it. I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I didn't know how to back out of it. I didn't know how to get out of it. And I felt like because I had been willing to put all of this into my backpack and do it and be in it, that I would seem lazy if I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I just kept taking it on, and I never complained. And I didn't seek out allies, and I had allies. And I learned that after I broke my arms and I was out, that everybody was just waiting for me to be me and to bring my whole self in. And I had allies and I had friends at work, and I wasn't opening up to them and asking them for support. And so I went through this period where I just was angry at myself that I had all of this work. I didn't enjoy any of it. I felt like I should love something, right? Like I'd loved the HR career for so long. Yeah. What I realized I actually loved was coaching employees. And I was sneaking that in because it wasn't technically in my job description. And I joined a group of women in a community when the pandemic started. Some of them were coaches. Everybody was in HR. And I realized that I wasn't finding joy in my work because I wasn't really doing HR work anymore. I was doing all the little things around the company. I was managing a construction project. We were supposed to move to a new office, and managing the pandemic, which all HR kind of got reeled into, and overseeing things that I wasn't interested in. And I had started looking for new jobs again, and they all felt the same. And my sort of warped brain was like, well, at least here you have whatever flexibility you need, which wasn't true because I was working 80 hours a week. And so I realized I wanted to more formally get some credential for coaching, right? I had experience. I had a lot of years of facilitative coaching experience and training through SHRM and that sort of stuff. But I thought, well, if I get this credential, I can get a bigger job somewhere else, right? And that I can. So it was like the achiever woke up and was like, we can do more things. We can find more things to do. And I reached out to a friend who was a former acquaintance who I had worked at the same company with before, but we didn't really have a formal relationship. And to ask her about how to get the credential. And in conversation with her, I realized how broken I'd become. And that this like achiever mentality of let me get another credential was actually like, I don't like anything I'm doing. And now I'm looking to add more onto that because I still feel like I have to keep it. And we've got a comment from Amy that she's hired 186 employees last year. Oh my gosh, it's already insane. I hear you.
And Amy, are you all by yourself in that, or is that a team of people doing that? I'm guessing she's solo, but that's a lot. Wow,
yeah, that is a lot.
I mean, even with a team, that's a huge amount.
Yeah, and so I hired that person to be my coach.
Great.
And what I learned working with her, was that I was telling myself I had to work 80 plus hours a week. Nobody was telling me that. I was telling myself I had to take on all this work and that letting any of it go would make me look like a slacker. I was telling myself that I couldn't trust my colleagues because I was in HR and HR has this specific role and you can't be friends with people when you're in HR, which, has some value in sort of, heed warnings kind of way. And there's always the risk of you're going to have to let a person go who you've become friends with and who you've let into your world. But that's not the reason to isolate everybody or isolate yourself from everybody.
Yeah.
And I started letting people in. I started talking to people. And I made a decision at some point to not work that many hours and to get back in my own lane and just do HR work, which in itself was like a 50-hour week job. It was,
I think I remember that time. I think we were in conversation back then.
Yeah.
I was so proud of you because it's hard to peel stuff off of you once you've committed, it's easier to say no and not get into it. Like kind of like getting into debt or something. Like paying off debt is really hard for anyone who's done that. I think it's tough and it's brave. It's so much easier. It's easier to just leave or to, whatever. But I'm
And so I did a lot of work in boundary setting and setting my own goals for what I wanted to do and not what I felt like I owed to people and to the company. And I went into my boss's office one day with my heart pounding to tell him that I was not going to work 80 hours a week anymore. And I was going to unload all of this stuff and waiting for him to say like, but we need you, but this is what we count on you for. And he said, well, congratulations. It's a great decision.
Wow.
Fully support it. And I was like, oh man, that's all it took. And 2 days later, he called me and he was like, hey, I think we accidentally left you out of a project. And I was like, nope, you didn't. That's how this works when I'm actually setting boundaries.
Yeah.
We've got a comment from Shane. We can certainly recognize our responsibility in creating our own unhealthy narratives at work. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally Shane.
And then we can recognize our responsibility to ourselves to untangle from that.
Yes.
And
I love that you gave yourself a shift in permission or something. Like you gave yourself permission to put yourself first, recognized that it wasn't sustainable the way it was. You got out of your comfort zone, going to have that conversation. And it sounds like you made a bold ask for help. This is what I need, not well, here's what's on my plate. I can't really handle it all. That's different than here's what I need from you.
Right.
And often that's all they need to hear, is here's what I need.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do my best work. And so anyway, I'm going to get out of coach mode now because we're just sharing our stories, but I see it all the time with was just in a conversation today about this, about how we don't give ourselves permission sometimes to need something and to ask for
Yes.
something and
Yeah.
to claim something for ourselves.
Mhm.
And I love that you set a goal too, that you had a vision for yourself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We've got a comment from Jen. Your boss was amazing. Did any of the negative perceptions you were afraid of manifest from the rest of your coworkers when you pulled back? That's such a great question.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, but so briefly and so much more lightly than anything I ever imagined. We all make up stories, right, about what's happening around us and what people are thinking of us and what they're deciding about us. And my boss was amazing. And also, I had to keep reminding him that I was not involved in things anymore for months. Like, I'm not handling that anymore. That's not mine anymore. And I did get from colleagues, they would ask me something and I would say, oh, this person's your person for that. You can go ask him. And I would get back, isn't that your responsibility?
Mm.
Right. Which was, I'm saying it with a tone still, right? Like I still feel like, maybe I should do it. But it was curiosity, right? Like I've always come to you for this. Isn't this what part of what you do? So there was a retraining um, of uh, of my colleagues that I didn't just do everything.
Yeah.
And even if I knew how to do it, I wasn't going to do it anymore. And Brian is saying, as a manager, you need to recognize those folks who work 60 plus hours and let them know that is not okay. Those folks you don't want to burn out. Yeah, it's true. It's, and some people do thrive in working more hours. So it's less, I think, about the hours
Yeah.
and more about the energy.
Yes.
Because there was a time when I was working 60 hours a week and I loved it.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, I'm not sure I would want someone to take care of me by saying, here are the boundaries I want you to set for yourself. What I would want, what I needed in that situation was not that people didn't try. Like I wasn't letting it in, right? But what I probably needed was for someone to say, here's what I'm noticing. Over the last year, something's shifted in terms of the energy you're bringing to this. And there's something about it feels depleted. Like you're prickly, you're kind of edgy, your relationships are starting to suffer. And I don't think that's what you want, right? So what's working, what's not working, what's on your plate, what do you need help with might be a really great question if it's somebody who can help you. Or even just a noticing, a reflection of like, hey, how are you doing? Because something's different. And I want you to be successful and I want you to have the impact you want to have. And it doesn't seem like it's working right now.
Yeah.
I know that's what I would have wanted. I think it's different for everybody. And there's a permission thing there around designing, how we support each other without taking care of each other, because that gets codependent and then we're making assumptions about what people need or can handle. We never know. We don't know. We don't know what people are carrying or nobody knew what was in your backpack. You didn't look like you needed help.
Right.
And so until you decided to claim, this is my job to ask for help, I need to go set some boundaries with the help of your coach, which was great that you got that before you left. You were able to turn that around for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Approach with curiosity versus judgment. Yeah, I think that's the safest way to do it, because we just really can't assume, what people are going through.
Right. Yeah.
We can't assume everyone's got something. Everyone's got stuff, right?
We all have stuff, and some of it came from our upbringing, and some of it came from assumptions we created ourselves, and some of it came from a side glance from a boss that we internalized as something that was about us.
And some of it came from actual harmful things that happen in the workplace or,
Yes.
In our work relationships. There are power imbalances at work. There are, there's crappy feedback. People, don't give helpful feedback sometimes, and they make it about you and your personality and stuff you can't change. And then you're carrying that around going, how do I be different from who I am?
Yeah.
So there is actual damage that happens too. So I think for leaders, what we can do most is try not to do any more harm, than has already been done, but also not treat people with kid gloves, because people are fairly resilient. They kind of need, well, I guess I'm sort of getting into what I needed. I'm getting theoretical, but I probably would need to just talk about what I experienced and what
Yeah,
was messy for
please.
me.
Yeah.
Because I'm daring to know for other people that other people are going through what I went through. And I don't want it to end the way it ended for me. And this is, by the way, I went on to have another HR job after this that was delightful, because that was like my favorite client. And we had these projects and programs, and it wrapped up in a natural way. Like it came to a conclusion. Um, that was great. And that's where I really fell in love with coaching and realized I didn't know enough about coaching, and I wanted to go get certified because I needed more of that. That's the juice for me, is
Mm.
seeing people transform and helping them um, understand their own strengths and their own unique impact and the possibilities for them. So that part was juicy, but this in between part was really messy for me. And I've had messy bits since then too, but I think I had one yesterday. But the cookie dough moments. But when I started to notice that, well, so let's just leave off from like, I didn't do what you did. I kept it, um, held the responsibility, kept holding on to things, but then was getting resentful, angry, and like, why can't I hand this off? And why won't this stick to this other person? And why can't they, do it in a way that it doesn't keep coming back to me? Why can't they do
Mhm.
it right? Or why can't they, you know, I don't know. And I don't think I was attached to them doing it the way I had done it, but I'd kind of built it in a way that if they didn't, it was probably going to fail.
Mm.
Um, so that was hard, right? Like stuff just kept coming back around to me. And I ran the coaching program for our, this one group. And it was something that I was trying to hand off to someone else. I'm not great at administering contracts and agreements. That's just kind of not my sweet spot. And I was trying, but I was failing, and it was getting bigger, and I was falling down on it. And the person I was trying to hand it to was still fairly new and didn't feel ready to take that on, in addition to her client group. So um, I just was failing. Like I dropped balls. But
Mm.
meanwhile, like you were talking about how you were sneaking in coaching because that was kind of the juice for you. For me, the juice was being involved in the strategic stuff and like the bigger picture programs. And so I was still hanging on to this bigger, like, employee engagement project that was bigger. And then that got a little messy because I really couldn't hold all of it, right? I just couldn't do all of it. Um, and I was holding on to delivering that training that I loved because I was good at it and people were asking me to do it and it was transformative for teams, but wasn't really in my job description.
Mhm.
So I was kind of failing on the things that were in my job description, and I was thriving and succeeding in some of these other ways. But the total picture was, it must have been really annoying for my boss. Worse than annoying, it was probably damaging to some degree. And here I sort of thought he had it in for me a little, but I think he was just trying to like hold things together. And I
Mhm.
was this outlier I was sort of disruptive. I sometimes hurt people's feelings because I just didn't notice. I was so busy focused on the work that needed to get done that I wasn't really noticing, how maybe I was making things more complicated for other people, or I was setting the bar a little higher, or I don't even know if I was doing that. I was just, it was kind of disruptive, which had been very successful up to that point and had been why my job grew and I was loving what I was doing and I was making an impact and the culture was getting better and we were getting noticed for what we were doing. So much good in that until it just wasn't. And so here's what I felt at the time. I felt like, um, nobody wants to help me.
Mhm.
Um, I was mad at myself for not creating allies, for not, being more present with them so that they could be present with me when I needed them. I was afraid to I'm going to get a little emotional here. I was afraid to take any time off because if I would step away and something fell through the cracks, there was usually someone on the team. Someone had reached out to someone on the team. They didn't know what was going on with my stuff. They would send an email to everyone, CCing me while I was in, Hawaii or wherever. And then I'd end up working, like trying to clean that up. It was
Mm.
just this constant sort of chasing things. It was a snowball effect. I had the nickname Velcro for a while because just everything stuck to me. And for a while it was funny and cute. And then became so clear that all this stuff was stuck to me and nothing big could stick anymore. And nothing that I loved could stick anymore. And I was heartbroken because the pieces that I loved, I really wanted that to become like my job. And that had always happened before, where I saw a need, I brought my strengths to it, I brought my passion to it, and it created a thing that was useful and thriving. This time, it just wasn't happening. I was getting internal interviews for jobs in org development. I would get to be the number 2 person and I wouldn't get the job. So I started to know, that's when you know someone's not supporting you. Like, you're not getting, when they go to do the reference checks internally or they go to talk to your manager, they're not getting a good story. So I knew I was limited. So I started talking with my boss about leaving because we didn't need that many senior people on this team. I could see that some kind of restructure made sense. And I was all in for like, let's transition this together. I have all this stuff stuck to me. Let me get it peeled off of me. Let's hand it off to people. Help me do this. I think I asked for help in that way at that time. And it was too late. It was just too late. So this restructure happened, not on my timeline. I was notified in a way that's pretty standard in corporations, which means you don't get advance notice and you have to clean your office out that day. So, 6 hours of cleaning out 8 years worth of stuff and loading it up in my station wagon and driving over the mountain, literally feeling like I was driving over a cliff at the end of the evening. Not having any idea. I had so much identity tied up in that place, hundreds of constituents and internal clients, people. And then apparently nobody knew what happened. Like, there was no communication, even though I did my best to say, here's where everything is. Here's the status. Here's who needs to know what. I don't know what happened or why things didn't get communicated, or if they did and people just miscommunicated to me. But I was getting all these calls the following week saying, what happened? Did you kill someone? Because you were just on the dais a couple of weeks ago or something getting an award. What on earth could possibly happen that you had to leave so suddenly? And I said, I can't talk about it, but just know that it was, it was going to happen at some point, and I'm fine. It's fine. But I'm really sorry that the ball got dropped for you. I'm really sorry. It was horrible. It was humiliating. I had to like slink away with my tail between my legs. And then or at least I thought I did. I told myself that I could kind of never face those people again. I could never see them again. And slowly but surely over the years, they've come and found me. The people who saw me, who got me, who understood, they have come and found me, and so it's, and not, and we don't, I don't, bash the company with them, or, there's none of that anymore. But I had to heal first in order for that. I had to have some space from it so that I could be in a place where I could really serve people from that time in my life without any attachment to, oh, you got to get out of that place. No, I don't feel that way. I think it's an amazing place for so many people. There were some things in the systems and structures that I didn't agree with, and that made it really difficult for the managers I worked with to do their jobs well. The way the performance management system was run was, there was lots of unintended impact, and I tried to reflect that, and I ended up being kind of the messenger, like the Joan of Arc coming in going, this system is broken. And they're like, no, it's not. You must be the problem, right? So I made a lot of mistakes in those last couple of years, trying to fix it, trying to hold it together, trying to change the strategy, and I just ended up making everyone wrong, including myself. And so instead, what I would do now, if I could go back and give that, and boy, I'd love to go back and give the me of that time, first of all, a hug. I really needed that. Secondly, a reminder that this didn't define me. For so long I wore that dog food like it was part of me, and there was this shiny star underneath that. I didn't need to let it stick to me, but we do. We identify with the feedback we get, with the way people feel about us, the pleaser in us, right? And I was so ashamed and so humiliated for the longest time. So for me, the deep work was lots of coaching. So going through coach certification. The certification came later, but I had coaching in between. Also, I did sort of my own, I don't know what you want to call it. I sort of put myself in a retreat. The minute I left, I was like, okay, what's missing in my life right now? Joy. I really, really miss joy. And
Yeah.
so I made that my purpose. It was just my mission every day to find joy in colors. And I took up photography. I had missed out on this beautiful place I live, Lake Tahoe. I hadn't spent any time outdoors because I was working all the time, 80
Yeah.
hours a week. I don't think I ever got to 100, but I was working 80 hours a week. I was totally identified with my job. I was answering emails at 11 o'clock at night. I couldn't let anything rest. And so of
Mhm.
course, the first thing was just to like, I had none of that. I had to wake up the next day and invent my day for the first time in 8 years. Um, what was I going to do at that time? So
Yeah.
I just made the most of it. And then from that place of joyful living and experiencing and allowing, um, pleasure to kind of take front, not hedonistic pleasure, but like appreciation of my life, letting that take, take kind of center stage. Then from that came the energy again, the
Mhm.
bubbling energy of, oh, I have good work to do and I'm good at what I do. And people started asking me to facilitate workshops for them and, coach their teams. And I started, finding my way again. So, um, for me, it had to be like a marinating. I wrote blog posts. I did a lot of writing. But there was really a marinating as a strategy for me, just back off of all of it, surrender. This was, massive failure, but it's not the end of my life. It's not the end of
Mhm.
my world. And so I recovered from there. That was the biggest gooey mess was, feeling sorry for myself. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. Think I'll eat some worms. There was a lot of that for a while.
Yeah, I hear that. I also went through, it's so funny that, um, strange funny, not haha funny, that we talk about our situations. We talk about how we got to where we got and how we got through what we got. And you and I did it so differently, but the
Mm,
core of all of it is the same,
yeah.
right? Is the too much working, the overcommitting, the trying to make everything exactly right for everybody, right? That was what was at the bottom of it for all of me, for all of
Mm,
this. For me was like, I want everybody to be happy. I want everything to be fixed. I want everything to be as close to perfect as it can be for everybody else. And that's exhausting. And it's also not real. There is no perfect. There's
right.
just, keep practicing and
Right.
keep building and keep exploring. Um, and when I decided to leave corporate life, which I think you and I are a little bit unusual. I think a lot of people who are in corporate who then have these crisis points um, still find joy in corporate, right? I don't think everybody goes out to be a coach. I think some of us do, right? That
Yeah.
works for you and for me, but lot of my clients, imagine a lot of your clients are in these situations where they're pleasing
Yeah.
all the time and they're working all the time and they're
Yeah.
working more to work more to get more done. Um, and I went through a little bit of a crisis when I left corporate life, which was like, nobody needs me anymore. And I
Yeah.
had coaching clients and I still have coaching clients, and that's the business that I'm building. Um, but there is an urgency and a need that people have for HR, whether they like us or not, that goes away
Yes.
when you're not in that job anymore. And there's
Yeah.
grief associated with that.
Yes. Yes.
And
For
then
sure.
there's decision making, and then there's rebuilding. And we've got a comment from Shane. I appreciate you both sharing your stories. Conversation creates transformation and healing, which I think a lot of us need so we can thrive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's funny you use the word joy. That is also my life purpose is joy. Um and what happened for me as I started exploring how I wanted to spend my time and energy was that I suddenly had extra time in my day.
Mm.
Because
Mhm.
when you go from working 80 hours a week to not working 80 hours a week, like every hour is like, what do I do with that
What do I
time?
do? Exactly. Oh my
Right?
gosh.
And
So
there was a
familiar.
point
Yep.
there was a point with my coach where I had gotten myself down to about 45 hours a week. And I said, I don't have anything to do. I don't have any hobbies. I'm like, we were in a pandemic by then. So like I couldn't go out and see friends and or go out and take a class. And I said, like, I think I might just go back to working all the time because I don't have anything else to do.
Mm.
And I didn't.
Wherever
We
you
explored
go,
it.
there you are.
We
You
explored
said that
it. It's
earlier.
not what I wanted, right?
Yep.
And then I started building my business. But um, it's I mean, it is a whole path, right? I don't like the word journey. That feels very, sort of like some sort of parable is coming out
I
of
love
it.
that word. That's funny.
I know most people do. I bristle at the word, but it
Like
really
you
is.
picture the word epic before it always, or
Right,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it is this, you get to this decision point,
Mm.
and you hope that you get to a decision point before burnout, before the employee-employer relationship isn't working anymore,
Yes.
before like
Before damage is done.
absolutely have to make a decision, or before a decision is made for you.
Yes.
And that's the time to choose.
That's the goal. That's the
That's
work
the
we do.
goal.
That's what we're here
Yeah.
for.
That's
Yes.
what we're
Don't
here for, and that's the
yeah.
opportunity for the people who are watching this or watch it later or whatever, is like, if you're in this spot where you're hiring 180 people a year, or you're working all the time and you can't get out of it, like, now's the time to take control of that. And it doesn't have to be with a coach. I mean, I think we're both fabulous, um but find your allies, find your people,
Yeah. Yeah. I hold a
figure out
mastermind
who
group
you're
right
willing to
now.
accept help from.
This mastermind group that I hold sort of organically emerged from people I was working with who were craving community. And they just sort of all bonded with each other. It's amazing. And I think, gosh, if I'd had that, like an ecosystem around me, right? An
Hmm.
external group that, you know, could help me process these things. Even if it wasn't a coach. And by the way, the coaches that I had through the company, with the exception of one who was really good, coactive trained, they were all good, but I always felt like they were coaching me on my performance gaps based on what my manager had told them.
Mm,
I could tell they weren't coaching the whole person, and they weren't the people I could tell. Uh, I'm having like amygdala hijacks in the middle of meetings. Like, how do I deal with that? Um, or whatever was going on with me, right? I couldn't necessarily trust them. So I think having your external network, your external life beyond that to
mhm.
support you as you're resourcing yourself is really important.
Yeah, yeah. Sharon, I can't believe it, but like 50 minutes has
I
already
know,
gone
always
by.
goes by so
So
fast.
I know.
Yeah.
So before we close, I'd love, if you have any final thoughts, for anybody who's watching this, and also I'd love to know what you have going on and how people can get in touch with you.
I think I just shared my final thoughts. So, what do I have going on? So it is kind of an ecosystem. There's a monthly Evolving the Nature of Work meetup on Zoom, the second Friday of each month from 12 to 1:30 Pacific time. That's for anybody who's involved in this work of evolving the nature of work and who wants a community. So people to bounce things off of and learn from and practice with. And then I have a weekly, I don't know how long this will go on, but I have a weekly Be Now hour that has been drop in, let's be now with what's here. It's been a fascinating conversation. And so that has very little agenda. Like we just show up and I'm me and they're them, and we riff on whatever's here. And then I have a class coming up, a master class that's 4 weeks, starting April 5th, every Tuesday, noon Pacific time. And that's called Rewild Your Impact, because I believe that the rewilding process really starts with each of us and requires each of us to bring our full selves to it, so that and to energize and resource ourselves so that we can be shaping things to come.
Amazing.
Yeah. All of that is in
Um,
my link tree, which is in my profile. So if anyone want to come find me on at Better Nature of Work on Facebook, Instagram, and then also you can find me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Thank you.
How about you?
And you can find me here on LinkedIn. My link tree is also in my LinkedIn profile. Right now, most of my work is with one-on-one clients. And I am now coming off of a 6-week hiatus as of next week, where I've been solely working with clients, and I've taken a break from business development, and I'm jumping back in. So look out for webinars and some
I
other
feel so
exciting
lucky that I got
stuff.
to be part of your reemergence.
Yes, I am coming out of the cocoon.
Nice.
The
I should
next
say,
iteration of
I
Butterfly.
forgot to say this because I hadn't been enrolling one-on-one clients actively for a while, but I do have 2 openings coming up starting in late March. So I will start talking with people about those in the next couple of weeks. My calendar's pretty
Terrific.
booked, but grab a one-on-one time with me as soon as you can, and I'll talk to you about that.
Great.
Not you, Lauren,
Sharon.
but, anybody else out there.
We're friends. We can't coach our friends. We've learned that. But thank you for being here, for being vulnerable, for letting me be vulnerable, and for sharing your story. And I welcome continued conversation. If you've got more comments, I'll keep coming back to the comments and checking in on them. And have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks.
Take care.